Are live. What's up, everybody?
We're back here with the wrong title.
Is it really the wrong? I forgot to hit the update
Episode
information
9,
button.
Void Mirage. Okay, there it goes.
Okay, I fixed it. Okay, so in today's video, we're going to
Nice.
be doing a Rift review on the new, well, not so new, but the new rerun of the Elena Rift, which, in my
The
opinion, is god
rerun.
awful. Yeah, it's the rerun,
We're,
not just the rerun.
the rerun was okay. Like,
Mm-hmm. Here's.
first time it was fine. Second time, okay.
Mhm.
Third time, you're just screwing with us.
At this
Come on.
point, before we even start reviewing anything having to do with the Rift, I think we should mention the fact that Sorrenthus and Elena were both on sale for essentially $70 each in the bazaar. You could
And
you could do
that came out, what, like 2 weeks
something like
before?
that, yeah.
A month at most.
hmm
So if you just waited a month, you
hmm
could have saved yourself
I also believe that
solid
Sorrenthus was in the bazaar
$70.
while his rerun was happening, so which is just
What?
mind-boggling.
What?
Yeah. I was rather surprised to find this out, but at the same time, it's whatever. So to begin this Rift review, I guess I'll give an overview of what we're looking at here and the rewards before we even start talking about what the Rift was, what it is, and the lack of changes that have been made to accommodate the ever-loving power creep that exists.
The lack of changes, yes.
Yes. So currently the rewards that are available are of course Elena and her sphere, and this time these reruns offer 2,300 of the Rift tokens or the Rift mementos. So alongside getting the guild tokens and Rift tokens that you normally get from doing a rerun, you also get 2,300 of the Rift mementos. Good lord. And this basically means that if you already have Elena in her sphere, congratulations, you get an Earth Golem and 500 Rift tokens. For those of you who don't have Elena in her sphere, it feels a bit more beneficial.
Yep.
Yeah. So we can
Gotta get
start.
those tasty Rift tokens.
Yeah. Some people just have like. Don't you have like 11,000 of them or something before you bought the new spheres? You might have had more than
I
that
only
even.
bought one of the new spheres, so I've still got 6,000 sit on. I'm counting on
Good
them
God.
releasing another 8,000 unit, and I don't really need Obrim or whatever it's called right this second.
Yeah.
Vulcanax is fine.
Yeah, that's fair. Um, So we can move right into talking about the fights that exist in this rift, since we've essentially covered the rewards. The only other thing that I would really
Oh, yes.
mention is that you need 75 million points to receive all of the rewards, but only 60 million to receive Elena and her sphere. So,
Believe it or not, with this rift in particular, that is not only incredibly achievable, but something that you should actively try to do, because two of the stages of this rift are extremely easy to farm for, to the point where even if you aren't like completing the entire rift, you can probably still at least crack 30 mil. And if you can get your entire guild to crack 30 mil, if you're of a decent size, then you can definitely get 75 mil.
yeah. Um, okay, so that pretty much covers the rewards, the tiers for the rewards, things like that. So we can move right into the first, well, a breakdown of the stages and what the strategies for those stages are. And pretty much for the most part, the strategy for this is just to TimLoNuke it. That's what you do now. This Rift was created quite some time ago, and it has been power creeped hard. And with the existence of knowledge of the strategy of TimLoNuking, which if you don't know what that is, I will leave a link down in the description to what TimLoNuking is on Linathan's channel, a guide to how to do it. And yeah. So it essentially is using recast and extra action in tandem to allow you to use SPBs 4 times in one turn rather than 2 from recast or 2 from extra action. So,
I'd also like
mhm.
to note that I'll like give a brief description of some of these fights, but you have to understand that with this rift in particular, there are fights that are essentially dummy.
Mm-hmm.
where you would have to basically be completely unprepared for rifts in general to lose against them.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the case for the first 3 fights that you encounter.
Yeah, pretty
I
much.
don't know. Are we going to start that up right now?
Yeah, yeah.
Or do
I
I
feel
get to?
like now is a good time to start covering that. So we can talk about the first one, which is Bruzebia.
All
No,
right.
Bruzebia is the third one. What's the
No,
first one called?
first one's Adelma.
Adelma.
First
Thank
one's
you.
Adelma. It's the big mouth.
Yeah, he's big mouth
So,
fire boy.
Smash Mouth over there doesn't really do much other than deal a lot of piercing damage and have mitigation for the first 3 turns.
Mm-hmm.
He also heals himself when you damage him, but any degree of like standard nuking, especially if you're running mono water, kill it till it's dead,
Mm-hmm.
just utterly destroys anything that Adelma has,
Yeah.
and then it just dies.
Yeah,
You
essentially.
move
I mean,
on to
go ahead.
Then you move on to stage 2, which you have to use the same squad for. That's against Aristal,
Mm-hmm.
who is, from my calculations, completely non-threat.
Yeah, Aristel really doesn't do anything other than be a huge nuisance with BB drains. So the main strat, first of all, Aristal
She does
is
BB drains.
yeah, if you don't kill her first turn. Aristal is the strategy for her is essentially one of two things. The first is that you just kind of nuke the shit out of Adelma and not Timlo it, as it doesn't reward that many points, but Timloing will give more, and move on to Aristali, and to avoid the BB drain that she has, you essentially will Timlo her on the very first turn to avoid her even having a chance to respond with a mono water team, which Timlo with mono water is interesting because you can get Paradigm 3 with it, assuming that you have the right setup. So, or Paradigm 2,
Even
because
if
you
you
need,
fail,
yeah.
I think even a failed TimLoNuke would be enough to finish off
Oh, yeah,
Aristal.
definitely. But Aristali gives an obscene amount of points. I, had a terrible Timlo attempt and still got 1.4 million points off of her. So once you've essentially mopped the floor with Aristali, who really, even if you are fail your Timlo or aren't Timloing at all, is not a threat, you can then move on to stage 3, which is the stage that will give you the
Which
most
you have the
points.
ability to change squads in between
Yeah.
when you fight the Thunder type Bruzebia, who is another great source of points
Mm-hmm.
because Earth just utterly reams him.
Yeah.
And as someone who brought 2 Arumats into that and would know exactly how little, and no mitigator, I know exactly how little damage this man does to the point where he couldn't even kill me with that.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure that he is also a non-issue.
He really is. And the only issue that I genuinely ran into with Bruzebia was doing too much damage and killing him before I finished my Timlo. So that's the
I'm
only real
pretty
issue.
sure that Bruzebia kills itself
Mm-hmm.
on turn 3,
It
or at
does,
least it
yes.
did for me. And I was just like, you've just ruined my.
Yeah, it nukes the crap out of itself on the third term or third turn.
Why would
Um,
it do?
I don't know, which reminds me of that time when you were helping me with that rift. I think it was the Zelion rift, and the boss just straight up killed itself. Do you remember that?
Yes. When I was doing breaching the nebula for
Mm-hmm.
Raccoon, I managed to reach Jirion, and his team was not strong enough to nuke Jirion all the way through. It was
Mm-hmm.
only strong enough to get him to 95% on the first turn. And I was thinking to myself, oh boy, I'm screwed because Jirion tends to do a lot of nukes. And Jirion, I apparently killed one of Jirion's, and it caused him to hit himself in the face for 5% HP damage, instantly killing him.
Yeah, it was pretty
And
entertaining.
I found that hilarious.
I was at lunch with my family at the time, and Faf was helping me clear that. This was years ago, but he was helping me clear that, and I just watched. Or he didn't. I believe he sent a screenshot, but I remember him just telling me that he just watched it kill itself, and I was like trying to hold in my laughter while out at dinner with my family. It was fucking hilarious. It's just I don't know if it's still a thing that happens or if it's just a freak bug, but It was
Oh, it's
entertaining.
absolutely still a thing that happens.
Oh
They
my
never
god.
updated it.
That's absurd.
That Rift was never rerun.
Oh god. Okay, yeah, we should BTN rerun when. Give me my my second Zelion. I don't know.
Okay.
So anyway, we
All
digress.
right.
Back on topic.
Now that we have finished talking about the complete non-issue that is Bruzebia, we can move on to Xenon.
Hmm. Xenon is an interesting case because well you can do a couple of things. So Xenon as well as Estia, but we'll get to that, have pierce, mitigation pierce, which means that he can hit you relatively hard. But there are a couple of things you can do to deal with him, I guess, depending on your squad. I just kind of wanted to have full overdrive gauge while going into Estia, and to make sure that that would happen because Xenon does have a point cap, and if you Timlo him, you don't get it, like, really. I think you get 10,000 more points for Timloing him, so it's not worth it. So I just kind of SBB nuked the shit out of him with 100% evasion, moved on to Estia. So that's one of the ways that you can do it. You can also 100% mitigation and hope, or you could do what it seems like most people are doing other than Timlo, and that is iUBB.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're gonna count iUBB as death to strategy because this is the only that it actually works against.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to use it, this is the time, but I don't recommend.
Yeah. So iUBB, for those of you who don't know, is also a method of combining recast and extra action, but it's more so using it to allow one unit to instantly fill their own overdrive gauge and then UBB over and over again an infinite amount of times. And a fun fact about this is that each of those UBBs, because of the nature of how overdrive UBB works, you actually fill a synergy shard every time you do that UBB. So
No, you don't.
I tested it and you do. Is it just a bug?
That should be a bug because the
Okay.
way it worked initially is you would get a synergy crystal the first time on any given turn that a unit UBBs. You would have to be alternating UBBs in order to do it, and even then you would only get two.
I believe it has something to do with the nature of how overdrive works and the coding that Elim gave it. I was talking to someone about this the other day and I tried it, but it could very well just be a bug that happens either in the Rift or game wide. I'll give it some testing later, and if I can recreate the bug, I'll post a video about it. Or, post a video of me doing it over this. So,
Yeah.
iUBB is a thing that exists, but it gives very, very little points. So you're better off just Timloing and kind of cheesing things, but if you're really, really struggling, you can iUBB, because at this point, there's so many units that give overdrive fill that it's a joke to be able to iUBB at this point. It's really, really easy.
Assuming you can't do any of those things, I suppose we should go over what Xenon actually does in the fight,
Yeah.
other than just ways to cheese it.
Mhm.
Xenon likes to hit you with a lot of locks pretty much back to back.
Mhm.
He likes to alternate which locks he does, so you can expect that if he's done a sphere lock, then he'll hold off on doing sphere locks for a while in order to instead spend extra skill locks and leader skill locks. He's very efficient like that.
Yeah.
It's not an exact cycle, but you can generally will attempt to lock down as much stuff as possible. Maybe deal some BB drains. He'll definitely pierce the crap out of you in the process.
Mhm.
Just get used to seeing units dead. I don't usually recommend revive strategies, if only because letting units die in order to revive them is generally not seen as a good idea.
Mhm.
But I do recommend running at least 2, if not 3 revivers, which is made significantly easier nowadays with the introduction of things like Sero, which are tanky enough to survive Z.
Yeah. Also bear in mind that this fight was not changed at all since the last rerun, or since the release, I
None
think.
of these work.
So
None
what
of
we're
these
looking
work.
at, what we're looking at is something that has been power creeped so hard that units like Sero, Chizuru, actually you could technically work with Estia in this rift once you get to Cursed Estia. So even, units like that, really the power creep that has come forth has made this a lot easier, as demonstrated by the fact that you can just TimLo the shit out of it. So now that one more thing that we do have to cover about Xenon is that he does have his barrier. Estia has a similar mechanic, but what Xenon does is, I believe it's every 4 turns. Is that right? That he puts up
I
his
think
barrier.
so.
Yeah. So every 4 turns, Xenon will put up a barrier that is essentially has 1,000 HP. It needs to be hit 1,000 times, but he mitigates everything to 1 when that barrier is up. So you essentially have to do 1,000 hits, or you can use something with a Pierce UBB. So you can use Estia UBB, you can use Xenon UBB, you can use Hakuzo UBB. Again, we see that this rift has been power creeped a lot, so Hakuzo will absolutely shred that barrier, as will Xenon. They'll just pop them.
Just won't do anything afterwards.
Yeah, but they'll just pop those
Still
barriers.
mitigating damage to 1.
Yeah, it's pretty frustrating, but that's pretty much how it works. So you can pop those barriers with those UBBs, or you can kind of just do what I did, and anytime that you mess up hard enough that you get to turn 4, you can just sort of cheeseroo your way through it because she has so many hits. So that was my method. And then once you beat Xenon, which Xenon is, in my opinion, relatively easy now that we have units that exist like Sero, Chizuru, Hakuzo, Xenon, Estia. But at the same time, it can be difficult for some people, so don't get discouraged if it takes a good number of tries. Bear in mind that you can use an
He's
Ondaria.
really got you down. Estia's gonna crush you though.
Mm-hmm. The other thing is that if you're really, really struggling with Xenon, or Estia for that matter, you can use a Moth Kiel friend or an Ondaria friend for that nice, I believe it's 80% evasion on Ondaria UBB. So,
Yep.
yeah. So that's pretty much all the methods that you can use for Xenon. If you're a relatively end game or powerful player, he's a fucking pushover. I wouldn't bother Timloing him if you're going to Timlo, simply because he doesn't reward very many points. I believe his cap is 390k. That's the most I've ever seen anyone get. And so even with all of his mitigation buffs gone, you'll still only get about 380 to 390k for Timloing him, while with just SBB nukes and a couple of turns, you'll get 350k. So, next... Huh?
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
I was just saying yep.
So next we can move on.
Next up is the Estia fight, which apparently got slightly buffed.
Mm-hmm.
I see whoever CC free to play is in the stream chat saying that the base damage and DOT damage are buffed, which I can believe. I don't think that. I mean, it was still just as strong as ever, but then again, it was now a difference of my units are surviving it now based on back when I originally did this, they were killing units left and right. So it being buffed is a relatively minor difference.
The only thing that actually got
now
buffed.
have units to survive it either. So I guess if it was buffed, it was just buffed to a level where it now deals damage instead of just being like complete garbage damage.
Yeah, so the only buff that it really received was DOT and base damage, and DOT is the only one that matters, because that's instant death DOT. But with Estia UBB, Qtong and Sero DBB, Sero UBB, anything like that, you'll pretty much just make a joke out of it.
Yeah, because this isn't like Fury where he removes 5 turns of your DOT mitigation, just die.
Please no.
This is regular just death DOT, which means that we can deal with it with either cleanse or 100% DOT mitigation. Still need to deal with her barrier or else you get buff wiped.
Yeah, so she puts up a similar 1000 HP barrier to Xenon, and if you fail to break that barrier, she will buff wipe you and kill you. Like, it is... I don't believe she can buff wipe Chance Angel Idol, so Sero UBB will hard cheese that, but she will buff wipe you and attempt to beat the ever-loving shit out of you. And what I personally would do here is, again, Moth Kiel or Ondaria to have 100% evasion. So get a unit that gives you 20% evasion like Chizuru on SBB, and then Ondaria UBB. You can even bring, a 0BC Ondaria friend. So if you fire off that, you get evasion, and then from there it's just a matter of dealing with the DOT, and everything else is just cheese. So that's a way of handling it. What I believe most people do because she is really, really still difficult to even Timlo down from full to empty for most players. I don't even know if you could do it, Faf. I haven't seen high level players attempt to Timlo from full to empty, but I know that most people lower her to about 50% or below and then Timlo. That's your best way of doing it.
I don't know if people can one shot her. Like I've
Yeah.
seen some people two turn,
Mhm. I also don't
but
have a good mono dark at all, so I couldn't speak for that.
I don't know if synergy crystals transfer over between fights. I don't think they
They
do.
don't
Not
transfer
even
between
in.
stages where you can change your squad, but from things like Xenon to Estia, they transfer over.
Okay, then you could do something like stall out Xenon,
Mm-hmm.
which necessarily difficult. Get to Estia and then launch like Kranis DVV, which would give you like a solid 4 turns of evasion where she can't do anything,
Mm-hmm.
and then you just murderize her
Mm-hmm.
face.
Yeah, pretty much. So I think obviously you can iUBB Estia as well. I'd say if you're really, really struggling, that's the way to go. You won't get very many points out of it, but it will be a very quick and easy cheese method. So that's pretty much that pretty much covers Estia, which I guess allows us to move on to the last one, which is just
Oh
stage six,
yes,
Elena.
stage 6 is Elena, which is the hardest fight in the entire rift. Here's how it goes. On your first turn, she denies you from taking your first turn. And then she hits you down to like 10% HP and denies you from taking her second turn.
Mm.
And then she dies.
Yeah, that's
And
that's
then
pretty
she
much it.
dies. Like, I'm not,
She just dies.
that's not like you taking your turn. That's just she dies.
She just simply keels over and dies. Uh,
Keel over and die.
so yeah, that pretty much covers the entirety of that rift. So TLDR for those of you who skip to the end to get the synopsis, it's just Timlo. It's just Cheese It and Timlo. If you can't do that, it's just iUBB. And if you can't do that, go find a guide because there are some great guides out there that'll be really helpful, and the wiki has some too. Anything else to add?
DBB is useful
Yeah, I mean it's
if
it.
you're struggling.
Yeah, if you're
That's
struggling, DBB is
Rizky's
great.
advice.
Yeah, so I mean it is a fair point. If you are actually struggling, that
If you're
DBB may end
having
up saving
trouble,
you.
use DBB.
And now that DBB level 4 or bond level 4 exists, it is actually semi viable, but it also depends on having content hard enough for you to not just kill it. Which for the higher level players is not a possibility in
This is
most of
not
these
it.
riffs. Yeah, this ain't it, Chief. I'm
This is
sorry.
not
This
it.
ain't it. Like, um for those of you whose guild has reached 75 or 60 million points, congratulations on either your Rift tokens or your brand new Elena and Sphere. And I'm pretty sure that sums it up pretty concisely.
Uh, I'll go ahead and briefly say that Elena's timepiece is a nice sphere from the rerun reward. I will say that Elena herself is also still pretty good, but not worth $70. So,
Yeah.
can we get an F in the chat for all the people who spent $70 to get an Elena only for Elena to come
Can
a
we get
month
a
later?
can we get a mega F in the chat for the people who bought Serenthus during his rerun? I'm sorry.
During his rerun, what
Yes.
did they think we were going to get two of him?
I bet that there were people who believed that. Yeah.
Apparently, like, I don't have any confirmation of anyone trying this, but Gumi apparently hard coded the game to where you can only have one of each Rift unit.
Mm-hmm.
So that you specifically could not get two Serenthus or two Elena.
Mm-hmm.
But But again, I have no confirmation of that. So
I mean,
make of
I
that
would
what you
assume so. Yeah. So I,
they're
mhm.
dumb.
Yeah. So I'm pretty sure that covers everything.
Say.
You know, I will leave a guide to, or a link to the wiki guide down below, and a link on how to TimLoNuke, and a link on how to iUBB down in the description, just in case you
Yeah,
need those
that's
things.
close to $80 now. So if you still want to get Elena from the DVB, you can still do it. You just have to pay $80 and
There you
also
go.
completely disregard the rerun. Don't